Welcome back to the Sports Talk ATL podcast. I am Chase Earl, joined by Jake Gordon and Alex Lord. Over the weekend, the Braves made their final little adjustments to the roster. Pretty much what we all expected. RC going to be the starting shortstop. Adriana's going to be his backup utility man. Grissom and Shoemake are going to start the year in Gwinnett. Then you have Pilar and Hilliard as the reserve outfielders. Rosario Azuna obviously on the roster. The only tweaks really we learned about Nick Anderson will be on the roster. We talked about him last week not being on the roster. I think he's going to be a big piece of this bullpen, but Raisel Iglesias is going to start the year on the IL. Kyle Wright is also going to start the year in Gwinnett as he ramps up. That was kind of expected. He had his first spring training start, so he's going to need to ramp up for a few weeks before he's back. And in his place is going to be Dylan Dodd with Jared Schuster as well. They will both be beginning. So let's start off with that little battle. How do you see that playing out? Personally, I think Jared Schuster is going to be the guy. They're going to start him in the first series as the number 3 against a bad Washington Nationals lineup. I think there's a reason for that. The Nationals have a terrible offense. I think they want to see him succeed. I think that's kind of a sign that they see him as the 5th starter going into the regular season.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if it turns into some type of a competition or if Dodd is just there as a placeholder. I would probably say it's going to be the latter. I think it is Schuster's job, but it'll be interesting to see. You know, if he doesn't pitch well and Dodd does pitch well, maybe they make a switch. Maybe they change their minds. But right now, I think it's going to be Schuster's spot.
Yeah, everyone probably expects the first-round pick over the third-round pick. But I wouldn't be so sure. Just like you said, Jake, it's going to come down to how they perform. We saw that the Braves don't really care who you are, where you're from, where you were drafted. If you perform, you're going to contribute in Atlanta. So I don't think it's Schuster's job by any means, especially if he struggles. So we'll just see how each of them pitch. And it isn't a surprise. I saw some people talking about, wow, Kyle Wright's not going to, he's been beginning the year in AAA. And, I think that pretty much everybody else was like, yeah, that's not surprising at all. He's been, throwing 40 pitches last week. So there was no way he's going to make the opening day roster.
Yeah, this 5th spot's really interesting. I mean, they're basically leaving Dodd as a lamb for slaughter. Now, if he goes out there and balls out, they probably will include him. But, they definitely gave him the raw end of the deal. And maybe they want to see just how far along he is because they're putting him out there against a Cardinals team in the 5th game of the season right after Charlie Morton, a lineup that is a top 5 in baseball. Some would say it rivals the Atlanta Braves. So, I mean, you have an MVP in Paul Goldschmidt. You have the second guy in the MVP in Nolan Arenado and loads of other talent on that Cardinals roster when it comes to their offensive lineup. So if Dylan Dodd goes out there and shoves against the Cardinals, it definitely is going to change my mind, no matter what Schuster does.
Yeah, and that's going to be a big test. St. Louis is kind of a sleeper team. I feel like they really could have been close to winning a World Series last year. They were getting hot at the right time. But it's the beginning of the year, and that's the important thing is people need to remember you can't freak out. These early games, it's really just not going to be that big of a deal, honestly. At the end of the year, we saw the Braves in 2021 when they won the World Series. They really weren't that good until August 1st. So I'm not too concerned about it. There can be some telltale signs of things, but Schuster and Dodd both have a long road ahead of them, and they don't have to come out and be aces immediately. I just want to see, what these guys are made of.
Yeah, to that point, even last year, I mean, it took 40 games, for the Braves to turn it on. And, that coincides with Michael Harris getting called up. So, yeah, I mean, nobody should put that much weight into these first couple of months.
Yeah, and I think that's people like to freak out about the opening day roster and Grissom not making it and Shoemake not making it, and even some lower end bullpen guys like Jackson Steven and originally Nick Anderson. But this roster is not meant to be the final roster at the end of the season. They want to keep a lot of these guys down. That's why some of these guys didn't earn spots. You had options for Lupo, options for Eli White. You didn't have options for Sam Hilliard. Kevin Pillar could have opted out of his contract. That's why they made the roster. That's why Jesse Chavez made the roster over Nick Anderson originally, because they want to see what these guys do. Injuries are going to arise. Some of these guys are going to struggle. They're going to move things around. But while you have those guys that can be optioned to AAA, that's why they're in Gwinnett right now, whether they outperformed others in spring training or not. So people freak out, but this is not the roster that they're planning on going into the playoffs with. This is just what they have right now, and that's the way it should be, and that's the way the Braves have constructed it.
Yeah, and spring training is just spring training at the end of the day. It's nice to see which guys are hot, which guys play well, but I think that's not – the coaches aren't looking at the box scores and saying, oh, this guy did really well, this guy did really well. A lot of the times they're facing somebody that's never going to crack a major league roster. And yeah, it's nice to come out and have a good spring, but the numbers don't tell the story. The coaches are looking at completely different things than we are. It's just not that big of a deal.
Yeah, and I want to focus really, since we're getting to the regular season. Opening day is 3 days away. In 5 days, we will have seen Jared Schuster's first outing. What would be a good outing for Jared Schuster going into his first outing against a bad Nationals lineup? Obviously, you want him to light it up. What would be a good outing? Because I have high expectations. I genuinely believe he could go out there and shut them out over 5-6 innings. But what, in your mind, would be a good outing for Jared Schuster in that opening series against the Nationals?
That's like what we saw the other day. I think he had about 6 innings, 2 runs, couple strikeouts. And, we talked about this on an earlier show, but his big concern coming out of school, he was walking about 5.5 guys per 9 innings, which was way, way, way too many. And since he's been in the minor league organization with the Braves, they figured something out. He was barely walking 2.5 guys per 9 last year, and that's more palatable. You want to see that go down as low as it'll go. But Schuster's been good. I mean, he's been good at every single level. He's moved up. He's graduated at every level. He hasn't felt like he's been rushed. I didn't really think we would see him this early, but things change.
I'm looking toward, him getting out of a jam because it's inevitable. No matter how good you are, you're going to have to work yourself out of a jam sooner or later. So sure, I would love to see him throw 6 scoreless, giving up a couple of hits, but I'm eager to see what he does with, 1 out and bases loaded. So how he handles those kind of situations will determine, to me, how good of a performance it was.
Yeah, hopefully he doesn't have many of those. I'm with you, Jake. Outside of just the numbers, I think the control is the thing, because when you see young pitchers, yeah, they might have 2.5 walks on the farm or whatever, and that's great to see, but it's a whole different ballgame when you get to the majors and there's pressure and all these guys are elite hitters compared to what they have been facing. And if you get in a jam, I want to see you get out of it, but I want to see you have control in those situations. If they get a few hits, that's one thing. It's the walks. That's what kills you. That's where these prospects flame out. I mean, you saw it with Ian Anderson. As good as he was, he lost control last year. He was walking like 5 batters per 9 last year. There's a reason why he's down on Gwinnett. So to me, it's just as much those big situations, having control of those situations. If you get hit making good pitches, that's one thing. But if you go out there, you walk a bunch of batters, you get first and second, you walk a guy to get the bases loaded, that's where these guys really have trouble, and that's where it shows me you're not ready.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, the Braves defense, by all accounts, is pretty damn good. People knock Austin Riley, and Orlando Arcia isn't a Gold Glove shortstop. But Michael Harris is a Gold Glove center fielder. Ronald Acuna is right there when he's right. Matt Olson is above average defensively, and Ozzie Albies a Gold Glove defender. So just make him hit. Don't give him those free passes, just like you guys said. Let your guys play defense.
Yeah, well, the Braves are starting opening day at a good time. If you look at this lineup, the way it's hitting, Matt Olson might be the hottest player on the planet. He has 8 homers. He just hit his 8th before we got on this. Eddie Rosario has homers in back-to-back games. He had 2 homers in the WBC. He all of a sudden is starting to look like the Eddie Rosario we know and love. Ronald Acuna has raked. He's looked great all summer. Michael Harris has raked. He's looked great all spring. Austin Riley, the same thing. Sam Hilliard's a guy I think guys should watch out for. He's hitting like 420 this spring. Yeah, it's spring training, but we pegged him as a breakout candidate early on in the offseason. He looks great. This lineup looks ready to go in there and obliterate a bad Nationals team, which means, of course, they're going to go out there, lose 2 out of 3. The fan base is going to go crazy. Why didn't we do anything this offseason? Where is Dansby Swanson? I already know it's going to happen. I just want to ease fans' concerns. Everything's going to be okay no matter what happens this weekend. But it does seem like the Braves are getting into this season on the right foot.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see Ronald. I'm just getting flashbacks of when we were all at the opening day series last year against the Reds, and we just looked pitiful until maybe the 8th or 9th inning. I think maybe Austin Riley hit a home run to make it a little close. But yeah, I feel like the Braves always kind of struggle early, but it's not that big of a deal. They've still won the division 5 years in a row. It's they figure it out eventually. But yeah, I know it would be a little deflating to go into Washington and lose 2 of 3. But I think they can usually start.
It's going to happen because it wouldn't be a Braves season without starting off. Losing 2 out of 3, getting swept by the Phillies. I think we got swept by the Phillies 2 or 3 years ago. Like, whatever happens, it doesn't really matter, but that's not how fans are going to take it.
No. Yeah, can we get a home opener for once? I mean, it feels like every
we
single
had one
year.
last year, didn't we?
No. It's been like 4 years.
That was opening day. Yeah, because we had it because we won the World Series. You definitely have the home opener after the World Series.
Yeah, it was the first time the Reds had not played a home game to start the year in like 150 years or something.
That's bad business on the MLB's part, not giving the Washington Nationals are beginning the year at home.
Yeah, I mean, you'd love to have one, but the Braves come back home. They play a great series against the Padres, so it should be a fun one when we come back from St. Louis against San Diego. I'm really excited for that.